now we will have an online contribution on the dilemmas and challenges of hate speech regulation across Europe. And our keynote speaker will be Louisa Klingvall, who is the head of the Fundamental Rights Policy Unit at the European Commission's DG Justice and Consumers. And her keynote speech will be then followed by a panel discussion on the same topic, diving more deeper into the same topic. But first, I hope, Louisa, that you're hearing me and you're with us.
Yes, hello.
Great. The floor is yours.
I hope that you can hear me. So thank you very much for inviting me to this really important event. Hate speech and hate crime is more of a challenge than ever to all of us in Europe. It's not a new phenomenon, but as you already spoke about this morning, every time we face a critical external event, hate speech and hate crime spikes in Europe. And of course, freedom of expression sits at the very heart of the European fabric. It's enshrined in the Charter of Fundamental Rights. But our European Court of Human Rights have also made it clear that it extends to information that shocks and disturbs and offends. And can include criticism of religion or ideology and beliefs. But this should be distinguished from acts that incite to violence and hatred against individuals because of their religion, ethnicity, race, or nationality. And this can be limited under the European Convention. We often hear that there is no common definition of hate speech and that hate speech laws infringes freedom of expression. And I would disagree on both of these points because, in fact, there have been a number of efforts by the top human rights bodies in the world to consolidate the concept of hate speech and when it can be limited. And I think the Council of Europe recommendation to complement our sister organization in Strasbourg on combating hate speech, adopted in 2022, is particularly helpful because it contains a very broad definition on hate speech and it distinguishes it in its different characters, from the type of speech that is even criminal down to the type of speech that cannot be limited, but it still feeds stereotypes and prejudice, but where we need other policy measures to respond to it. We also, of course, at the European Union level, have a common legal framework on hate speech and hate crime. Here we have the 2008 Framework Decision on Racism and Xenophobia. It requires all the member states to criminalize hate speech, public incitement to violence and hatred based on race, color, religion, descent, national or ethnic origin. It also requires that a racist or xenophobic motivation when a crime is committed is taken into account when setting penalties. But of course, the Commission is also extremely concerned about hate that affects other groups, including homophobic hate speech, misogynistic hate speech, etc. And really affects these groups' abilities to freely participate in the democratic discourse. So in December 2021, the Commission adopted a communication, which was accompanied by a decision that if adopted by the Council, could extend the list of EU crimes in the treaty to also include hate crime and hate speech. However, so far I've been speaking about the legal definitions as well as what the law covers. But to make a difference on the ground, we really need to work with the whole enforcement chain. We can have perfect laws, but if they are not applied, they're not going to help anyone. We work very closely with the member state authorities and civil society and international organization in our EU high-level group on hate crime and hate speech. In this context, we have dedicated expert groups that we organize together with ODIHR, FRA, and CEPOL, where we work with very important points for hate speech and hate crime, victim support, but also data recording. We need to have data about the problem to be able to address it, and also in training law enforcement in both taking care of hate crime and hate speech victims in the correct way, but also in how to conduct an investigation in relation to these crimes. Of course, the measures that we take to pursue the author of hate speech offenses need to be accompanied by measures to ensure that hate speech narratives are not allowed to spread and go viral online. What is illegal in the offline world is also illegal online. Here we have the code of conduct on hate speech, which I think some of you are well acquainted with because you're working with it. And here we have put in place a solid monitoring system to ensure, together with civil society, that we can evaluate the IT companies' commitments to assess and take action on illegal hate speech in the majority of cases within 24 hours. This is a fully voluntary approach. And I think the success that we have had under the Code of Conduct shows that when addressing a phenomenon like hate speech and hate crime, we have to have a very wide toolbox. It should not only consist of legal measures, it should include voluntary collaboration with industry and stakeholders, and it should also engage with all the stakeholders, including the potential victims and groups that are affected. In respect to online hate speech and the responsibilities of online intermediaries, the Digital Service Act, which was published in October 2022, will provide a significant step forward. It will require online platforms to have in place notice and action systems to help remove illegal hate speech, but it also recognizes the role of the very largest platforms. These are the new town squares. This is where the political and general debates in our societies take place today. So to deal with the role that these platforms have for democracy, the DSA requires that they assess systemic risks on their platforms in respect of spread of illegal content, including hate speech, but also in respect to the fundamental rights of the users of these platforms. And the role of civil society to help enforce the DSA will be potentially very important, and projects such as this one will continue to feed the process of understanding what the risks are in the online environment. Codes of conduct will also continue to play a major role. The success of the Code of Conduct of Hate Speech very much helped to shape the DSA and to foster this collaborative approach that we need to have good quality content moderation. The DSA encourages the establishment of voluntary codes of conduct and see them as important mitigation measures for the very large online platforms to deal with potential systemic risk that they face. In cases that there are significant systemic risks, the Commission may even invite very large online platforms and relevant stakeholders to participate in the drawing up of a code of conduct. And of course, the DSA has now fully entered into force for the very large online platforms. So We in the Commission are currently in the process to identify, together with the IT companies, and we've also started to consult with the outside world, including our civil society partners, how the code of conduct can become an even more powerful tool in the future. And the novelty in our thinking here is that we would like to use this as a tool to feed intelligence from civil society on trends and changes in the landscape of hatred that they experience to the platforms, to allow them to, before the content goes viral, take step to adjust the content moderation policy. So this could be, for instance, when you see that something is brewing in terms of hate speech after a crime has been committed in a particular region or in the context of local elections. So it's more of a preventative step than sending notices through. This work, however, will of course very much continue. Following the very tragic events that unfolded in the Israel and Gaza situation since the 7th of October, we again see a very, very worrying trend of increase in hate speech and hate crime. And it seems to affect in particular Europe's Jewish and Muslim communities. And to face the urgency in tackling this problem, the Commission adopted on the 6th of September a communication, No Place for Hate. And here we aim to really step up again EU efforts to fight hatred. And we will carry out a number of actions. There will be more money towards protecting places of worship and where people are. The new code of conduct on hate speech will be an important tool to help address the spread of hate speech. There will also be activities to engage with society as a whole to ensure that various EU initiatives reach their full potential. And I think that I will stop here because I think that I delayed you all a little bit. So I am very interested to participate in the panel discussion that will follow. So I will stop here. Thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions during the panel. Thank you.